Louise Bedford here from the Mind Over Market segment, joined by my co-host Jordan Meller. Jordan, your backdrop is beautiful, I just have to say. Well done, really upping the ante here with the visuals.
Thank you. The new $1 million facility, if you can't tell. But no, thank you, Louise.
Oh, fantastic. Look, I know that you and I have been focusing on each other as inspiration for this segment, but I have started to get in a lot of questions and inquiries, which is fantastic because we are here as a resource for everybody watching. I have got today a segment based around somebody's question, and I'd like to explore that further with you, Jordan. I believe we are breaking new ground. I have coined a phrase here calling the trading yips, and let's flick over to the question because I think that would be ideal to start with. So this is from a watcher of the show. I've hit a horrible roadblock in my trading journey. Since inheriting a significant sum of money, I've been struggling with hesitation and second guessing when it comes to executing trades with larger capital. I can barely trade anymore. I'm paralyzed. Have you experienced anything like this before? Any tips or advice would be appreciated. Now, I think that we, having been in the market for quite a while, Jordan, can relate with so many aspects of this. Firstly, it is the psychological pressure that we feel as traders in different circumstances in our life. So things that can tick us off are things that are even happy events, like starting a new relationship or a relative criticizing us. It could be that all of a sudden we've got more money in our account, which creates some level of psychological pressure. It could be that we've made a loss. Now, all of these aspects, these are the types of things that we love to discuss. Now, Jordan, I don't know whether you've actually experienced this personally. Have you had a big dump of money into your account that's created some anxiety?
Yep, yep. Right, Louise, there is a specific number. I talk about it quite often. Not the number, but the fact that there is a number that I truly believe I cannot trade more than. Every time I've gotten up to there, I have just exactly how this person is describing. I'm paralyzed. I cannot perform. I don't know. I know why, but even knowing why, it's still that pressure gets to me, and so I ended up sitting underneath that level. I'm happy underneath that level, but that level is just my arch nemesis. I can't handle that pressure.
Well, this is actually quite interesting, isn't it, Jordan? Because this is something that we can talk about today, and hopefully I can help you break through that level. Now, the reason why I'm calling this the trading yips is because in the golfing community, and even sometimes with tennis players, they do find that the yips occurs when they're a skilled professional, when there are eyes on them, so it's a significant match or tournament, and when they have also developed some level of psychological internal pressure, their rumination, their self-talk starts to crash. And that is particularly prevalent when you see golfing professionals aim for the shot. Everybody knows that they've failed in this exact circumstance in the past and they fluff it. I don't know if you're a golf fan, Jordan, but would you have heard of the trading yips, but the golfing yips?
Yeah, yeah, and it starts to become a bit of a banter thing. You see them step up for someone out of the bunker, for example, and you'll be like, "Oh boy, I've seen this story before," right? And it does. That pressure gets on the people, and then I do it myself. I'm a golfer, not a very good one, but a golfer. And when I get into a situation that I know I'm not very good out of, I'm walking up, going, "Yep, I'm going to add another 7 shots to my score here. This is going to be fun."
Yes, and there's a certain tension that happens not only to your thought processes, but also within your own body. So let's examine this a little bit further. Now, I'm defining the trading yips as being hesitation, anxiety, or mental blocks when executing trades. It's often triggered by handling larger sums of money or high pressure trading situations, which is exactly as we've described. So even if you're used to being solitary and you're not feeling that competitive edge because you're not going to be up against other people's opinion of you. We are up against our own opinion of our own behavior and sometimes even that of a spouse. So all of those aspects can add up to a very uncomfortable situation. So having put a bit of thought into this, I've actually come up with some self-talk that might be some of the things that you say to yourself in this situation. And I want to talk about breaking this cycle, because if you can head it off before it even becomes an issue, then you're going to be in a much better circumstance. So here are some of the things that you might say to yourself if you're trapped in this yips cycle. Ooh, that's a lot of money to lose if I screw this up. Now, that seemed to me the biggest self-talk concept that was coming through that piece of feedback that that particular trader sent to me. The concern about perfectionism. Jordan, have you felt the need to be a perfectionist before?
You're already laughing before you ask me, Louise. I've not even got to answer and you're already giggling. I think you know.
I know, I shouldn't give the answer away, should I?
I am a perfectionist. I think there's always room for improvement.
Yes, and some of that can be based on identity. So one of the things that I wanted to use as a bit of a show and tell today is my own little nameplate. Now, as you can see, it's just got my name on it and it's nice and shiny, and it's a type of nameplate that lives on a managing director or a CEO's desk. Now, when I had a career in a real job, you know, that real job that I used to have.
That's a famous statement.
Not this job. That's it. I was a sales manager. I was a national sales manager, and I ran a lovely sales force, and it was fantastic. And it was here and actually also in Canada. Now, I had in mind that one day I would run that company and I would have my own nameplate with the definition of my role underneath. Now, there was only the very, very upper echelons of management and probably the top one or two people that got a nameplate. Seems like a ridiculous little thing, but gosh, I wanted it. So as a trader, I created my own nameplate and I keep it on my desk to remind me that I'm the managing director of my own business. It is scalable. It is something that I can put time into, but it is also something that I pride myself on as being a professional, because this is the quintessential small business. So that level of perfectionism, even though it can be applied adversely, it's also a driving force, which is a good thing. So we need to look at the good and the bad in each aspect that we're covering. Now, I'm just moving through in a clockwise direction. That much money, oops, that's actually not expressed very well, would take me 6 months to earn back if I blow it. So here, what's happening is that the concrete aspect of that much money is suddenly making an impact on that person's psyche, and that can be a very significant impact. I hit a trading yip barrier when I earned as much money in one trade. It was actually, I can tell you what trade it was. It was PIL. It doesn't even exist anymore. But I earned as much money in just a couple of weeks in that trade as I did my final finishing salary as a national sales manager. Now, it blew my head off because all of a sudden there was a lot of money coming into my account. It matched the level that I thought I had achieved in my previous career as a fairly high chunk. It was, a national sales manager salary. And I found that to be very invasive. It entered my thoughts. It made me wonder whether I was worthy. It made me question whether I would ever get that type of trade again. Now, Jordan, in that situation, what are some of the things that you're saying to yourself that perhaps that perfectionist streak is working against you?
I think it's tough, right? Because it's hard to, like you've literally mentioned there, in the real world. It's hard to compare trading and investment returns to salary and work ethic. They're two very different things. One's paid for your time, one's paid for your wit and your probability, right? So it's a little bit of a a difference there. And when you earn set amount of money, which equals a year work of hard work, early mornings, effort, conversation, like all that stress that you went under, and you've just made that so quickly, it can invalidate those feelings. It can make you feel inferior, or almost like you've wasted your time. The problem is if you get too caught up in that, then you lose a sense of reality, and you start being based in, I need to make $90,000, $80,000, $200,000 every week, in order to feel a sense of superiority, in order to get your own name tag, so to speak. Which I love that, by the way. But I think it's a very dangerous and tough position to be put in, where I can see it being very conflicting.
So the first step here is to articulate what are you saying to yourself, to become aware of it to begin with, and then we'll talk about how to defang it. The next one that you could be thinking is, plus it would be incredibly embarrassing if I messed up. Now that is from the total definition of the Yips perspective, something that is very much in the forefront of the golfer's mind. Having that audience to please, having that tournament ladder to climb, very important that they feel that they're on top of it. Now, there is another angle on this for musicians. Now, there is a unfortunate medical condition called focal dystonia, where a musician, when there's a repetitive movement, they end up, you would think it was just strain on your body by having that repetitive movement, but it's actually a neurological exhaustion. It's a neurological strain to the point where their hand, if it's, say, a guitar player, it actually rejects the instrument. It seizes up, it shakes, it gets stiff, and it moves away from that instrument so that they can't even touch those notes to create the sound that they know they're capable of creating. It is another form of yips, and it is something that is physically quite demanding. It is very difficult to overcome. So some of the things that those people who are under this condition aim to do is to become very conscious of their movements, but in a way that doesn't involve the instrument. So I've had this, it's an issue. So I don't play an instrument, but some of the things that I did was I used things like touch. Now, this is a little piece of velvet. Now, this little piece of velvet is a grounding piece of velvet. I touch it, I feel each of my fingers on the velvet, and I'm aware of the importance of touch. Now, this grounding exercise breaks that chain for me. So it's a routine, it's a stimulus, it's something to stand in the way of me being overly conscious about how I'm moving my hands, because I've had some difficulties with my hands and arms before. So sometimes something as simple as that can make a difference. So that embarrassing aspect, that needs to be looked at. Now, I know often when people are trading in the public eye where you can see a ladder, that can be a source of distress. Now, another concept that people deal with is, I've never traded with this much before. Now, I'm wondering whether this is the one you knew I was going to zero in on one for you, Jordan. I'm wondering, yes, whether this one is the one for you. I know there'll be one that you'll relate with more than the others, but it could be this one. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, so the way that I raised the amount of capital I did was through raising capital. To be honest, there's a bit of everything that you've mentioned here. Yes, I don't want to be embarrassed. I've managed to sell people to trust me, to show my data and really allow them to open up and be like, you know what, I back you, let's do it. And then to let them down would just be an utter embarrassment. But it was also an element of, I didn't want them to lose. And I felt when I took on those funds and took on that responsibility of trading or investing on behalf of those funds, for me, it felt very real. I took on a responsibility, and it was my responsibility to perform, and I would hate myself if I were to lose money for other people. Like that is not something, not a place that I want to put myself in. So I felt that pressure. Probably circles back to the same thing, but I felt that pressure because I really wore the responsibility jacket, which in hindsight I think is a good thing, but but also in hindsight it made it very tough.
Yes, because you've got somebody who could potentially be angry as well.
Mm.
So you're having to deal with their emotional outbursts as well as your own feelings about your own self-worth. So it is a significant thing. Choosing to trade with another person's money, even if you are a competent trader with your own money, it can sometimes change those dynamics.
Worst thing.
Heck, yes.
A lot of people ask me. I never recommend it. After that, I gave it all back, and I've never done it since.
There we go.
There you go.
Some of the other things that we say to ourselves, heck, I've failed again, even if it's a small little loss, and other people know I can't do this.
Mhm.
Now, in my own trading past, I used to teach at a TAFE before I started training professionally with traders, where I had my mentor program, which I've been running for the last 24 years. I used to teach at a TAFE just to get my head around, is this what I want to do? Do I want to teach people? And it was fun. There was a gentleman who came to that initial 6-week TAFE course. I had no idea who was sitting in front of me. He was a multi squillionaire. He sold the last company that he had controlled for $75 million, and that was just one. Now, after he realized I was a trader, he said, look, why don't you trade for me? And I naively said, yeah, sure. He said, how much money do you want? And I said, how much have you got? And he goes, I wouldn't give it all to you. Good decision. He said, no, really, name a figure. And I said, 15 mil. And he said, oh, okay, bang, it's in my account. So it could have gone much further than that. One of the things I liked about having that nice 15 mil to play with was it was at that stage clearly out in terms of volume and size, out demanding in terms of my own capital. So I got to look at his capital grow, look at those zeros, get my head around what it took to handle such a large amount of money. And then when it became my own account seemed fairly small in comparison, which was a lovely thing. So sometimes that upgrading to see some larger dollars can really help. So I've got some thoughts for you, Jordan, and you knew I would. Embarrassment is a muscle, and we can train our embarrassment muscle in other fields. We don't have to just feel embarrassed in one realm and expect us to not have that level of comfort with ourselves translate from other areas. There's a thing called the halo effect. What you think you do well in one area, you can do well in another area. But with embarrassment, here's the lovely thing. You can embarrass yourself going down the street and build that embarrassment muscle. You can, for everybody listening, not for you, Jordan, but you can ask the best looking chickie babe out and just go, hey, I'm prepared to live with that decision. I'm prepared to talk with that stranger. I'm prepared to wear that strange jacket. I'm prepared to shop at a thrift store for those really weird shoes. I can be embarrassed. I can expand myself because that expands us rather than that embarrassment feeling contracting us. As a trader, we want to be expansive. We want to be abundant. We want to avoid scarcity thinking. We want to feel that the world is our oyster and that we can do it. So all of this, by taking on an embarrassing activity outside of trading, it can actually improve our trading embarrassment threshold. So what could you do this week, Jordan, to subtly embarrass yourself? I'd love you to choose something.
Oh, I could do something every day, Louise. I do something every day. Look, I think to add to that as well, it also adds to confidence when you realize that these embarrassing things, they tend not to be as embarrassing as what you think they are afterwards. But what's something we could do this week to embarrass ourselves? Jump on a camera and live stream on a network TV, right? We do that every day. There's always something there to embarrass yourself. Ask a question. Ask a silly question, right? Ask a really silly question, or reach out, like you've said. You use the scenario of chatting to a pretty girl. Ask her out on a date or something. Do it in the business world too. Speak to someone that you think is way above your pay grade, that you will never get the chance to talk to. Reach out, ask them a question, right? Like there's so many things, and you'll be surprised how far a question can get you. For example, the two of us sitting here today, I sat there one day thinking, how on earth are we ever going to be able to work with Louise Bedford? Like, she's a 5-time best-selling author, going 6. This is something, and what was I? And everywhere gets with a question. So my challenge out there would be to put your ego on the line, go ask a question, go chat to the person that you wanted to chat to. Even better if you can do it out in public. If you can go up to a stranger and have a chat to them, even better. Worst thing that happens is they say no, right? And
Yes.
you shrug it off. It's fine. Nothing happens. That's what I would recommend.
I love it. I love it. I have a fairly high threshold for embarrassment. I've done many, many things that are incredibly embarrassing in my
Me too.
life, and it has actually stood me in quite good stead. So I do suggest for this person that is experiencing the yips that is something that you can do that's very tangible, and it's something that you realize once you've gone past that threshold of embarrassment that it has extended for you. So, Jordan, I'll just give you perhaps a wee example as to one of my most embarrassing moments. I tend to present now on stage in a suit rather than a flowing dress. And I know that you'd be curious as to why. Why would that be, Louise? Why would you not wear a flowing dress on stage? Well, way back when, I had a gorgeous dress on. It was very full. I presented on stage. There were, I would say, probably 800 people in the room, just a small number. I tripped over the stair on the very top step going down. I fell down the stairs. My skirt flipped up over my head, and everybody saw my undies. Now, I have to say, there was this sound from the audience that I've never heard before. It was like this. And I just lay there for a moment thinking, yes, it's okay. I haven't broken anything. And then I popped up. I was still mic'd and they still had me on mic, which was kind of handy. And I said, ta-da! And then everybody clapped and they gave me a standing ovation. And it was actually one of the most funny aspects of my life where I've gone time plus tragedy equals humor, because now I can tell that story. I relive the embarrassment. I can feel myself going slightly red as we speak, but it increased my threshold to such an extent that now I'm almost impervious to embarrassment. Almost, not quite. Yes.
I love
Jordan,
it.
I guess that hasn't occurred in your life, but
Not
have
quite.
you? Would you have thought she's unprofessional? Would you have thought she doesn't know what she's talking about? No, you would have had some level of human empathy for me falling down those stairs. You wouldn't have judged me. And I do ask you, as a listener of this show, extend that same compassion to yourself. It doesn't have to be that you're completely judgmental or that you are being judged. Just realize that most people don't even care. They're thinking about themselves.
Yeah. The first thing that came into my mind as you said that, is especially getting up and saying "ta-da" was good on you. That was literally I would have had so much. I would have given you the standing ovation. There's so much respect to have the embarrassment, but then to play it off as it's just I rate it. I like it, Louise.
And look, honestly, occasionally I'll meet somebody who was in the audience and they'll always tell me, they'll always refer to that. Look, it's just amusing to me now, but I think it's a good thing to do every so often. It's really make a fool of yourself. Now, the other thing in this Yips cycle is you might say to yourself, I don't want to feel this way again, and I feel like I'm a failure. Now, if you cast your eye around this cycle and see where we ended up, Jordan, that I don't want to feel this way again and I feel like I'm a failure, they are the two most telling little blocks here. Because what we're talking about is a human that wants to seek pleasure and avoid pain. That seeking of pleasure is built within us. It is such a drive. It is such a focus because as people, we feel that if we're seeking pleasure and if we're connected, we're going to do better as a human in society. So if we're feeling like a failure and if that gets linked as a trigger or a cue to our behavior, which is trading, that's where that link is the problem. That forms the basis for the trading yips. You've talked your way through this awful cycle of finally realizing that trading is the source of your pain. Now, once you get to that point, that is where you may need to seek some help and some support. But at any stage, you can head yourself off at the pass from any of those thought processes on the way. Now, I'd love to tell you what makes this worse as well. And this will be a shock. Mindfulness makes it worse. Thinking of your every single move, every single thought. Try not to get too intricate with your detail. Having to share your results is a problem. Social comparison and being a perfectionist. So you knew that I'd end up on something to do with perfectionism, didn't you, Jordan? So all of those things can make it a bigger risk. But let's look at some fixes. Visualization and mental rehearsal. Picture yourself creating the perfect environment, the perfect trade, but also look at what your role is with this. What are you doing? How do you look? How are you organizing yourself? Are you breathing deeply? Are you calm? Are you cool? Are you sophisticated in your choice of instruments? That is what we're going for. So visualizing and mentally rehearsing how you'll do that trade. Now, this, I believe, is a real key, but also if you've got an issue, gradual exposure and desensitization. I just want to touch on that word, desensitization. It's a medical word and it's based on if you're allergic to something, for example, like me, cat, cow, horse and dog, and pig, weirdly. Got the big five there. So what they did when I was a teenager is gradually injected me with more and more and more of this cat, cow, horse, pig, dog to desensitize me. So my system reacted. It reacted badly. It had like an asthmatic wheel type of thing happening on my arm, but over time it became less and less. So if only I had have known I had to keep doing it. I didn't know that. So I'm just as allergic now as I was when I was a kid, but I'm not prepared to go through the daily injections. So desensitization means in the trading world to trade with smaller amounts until you're comfortable. Desensitize yourself to that large amount. Quarantine your money. Put it in different buckets. If you've got that cap that you're talking about, you have trouble breaking through, break your amount of money into 3 different categories, for example, so that those 3 categories, when they get up to that amount, hey, isn't that good? You've tripled the amount by tricking yourself. So that is something. And I'll just go through the last one and I'll get your comment. And the last thing is to develop a routine and stick to it. Now, for me, that routine involves having a trading spreadsheet that when I calculate how much I'm going to buy, my next step is to not think, not deviate, not get up and make a cup of tea. It is to put that trade on in my trading platform. So it's an automatic, goes to this, to that, so that I don't think. That minimizing thinking is the key. So yes, there's time for introspection. Yes, there's time to go through those emotional effects that we covered on that breaking the Yips cycle. But then you actually have to do it. You have to minimize your thinking and prepare yourself for action. Jordan, how do you feel that would go along for a fix here?
Yep, I like it. I think I think this has somehow ended up being something I need to hear, especially when it comes to perfectionism. I like the idea of breaking up the trading pool as well, which kind of done without realizing doing it. So yeah, no, I think there's a lot to take away here. The being a perfectionist is a positive and a negative, and there's definitely got negative sides we discussed today. So working on that, I think, is a good idea.
So thanks so much for writing into me. My email address is louise at trading secrets, like my book, trading secrets.com.au. Louise at trading secrets.com.au. Write in any of your concerns. I'd be happy to answer them in a part of a show or even a full show, as this particular one has ended up being. Jordan, yet again, you are the fountain of wisdom, and thank you so much for your thoughts. And we will join you in the very next show next week.